So one of the things that you focus on a lot is awareness and self-awareness. Why is self-awareness so important for parents?
It's always the last thing they want to talk about in many ways. When you're a parent and you're frightened or you're upset with your kid, you want to come in and make changes, right? You want to take action. You want to learn to communicate in different ways, which is all well and good and will be helpful eventually. But the problem is if you're trying to use those skills and you're emotionally overwhelmed, or you're like on your last nerve and you're mad all the time, or you're falling into tears all the time because you've been scared for months and months and months, it's very hard to use those skills. And so if we don't help you bring your self-awareness and bring a lot of kindness to yourself as a parent, trying to learn new things and learn skills that will be effective, but they're hard.
And I would think it would be hard to say, okay, when my son or daughter comes home high, I'm going to try to be the most effective parent I can.
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell them?
Right. Well, first thing I say is it's easy coming out of my mouth, right? So I know I can make a bunch of suggestions to you. It sounds easy. I know that you taking that home and trying to actually implement it in your own home and use these skills is actually very difficult. So let's just name that's hard to do that, right? Because your feelings make sense. Of course, you're upset at your kid for coming home intoxicated. You're frightened. You're mad at them because they've done this 10 times in a row, whatever it is. So those feelings are valid. But one of the ways that the self-awareness section helps is it slows you down and so that you can assess, is me expressing my anger really helping? Like when I express my anger, how do the conversations go? Do I end up leaving those conversations feeling connected to my kid? Have they listened to a word I've said? And how do I feel about myself? Odds are none of it's good, right? So if we can increase your self-awareness so that you're like, okay, I'm boiling over. I'm really mad. So walking away and cooling off for a little bit so that I can talk to him tomorrow morning when I'm cooler. I've got some perspective. I've thought about what I want to say. That conversation actually might go well. You might be able to say something that your kid might hear. You might be able to have an impact, and you might leave that conversation feeling like, okay, I did my best as a parent. And I'm trying to move this along versus feeling like, I just got in another fight with my kid, which feels terrible.
Right. To what extent does self-compassion help parents stay cooler in the moment?
So once you're working on your self-awareness and you're trying to understand, like, what are the periods of time where I lose my cool versus the periods of time where I do a little better, right? So you're collecting that evidence. That can all go into, I'm going to use that self-awareness to change how I bring myself to these discussions. Self-compassion is a slightly different set of strategies that really is about all parts of the change process for you and your loved one. And it's helping you stay present in the moment, right? So really being able to say, I'm having a hard time. Like this is really hard for me to do. So being present with how you feel versus pretending like I shouldn't feel that way or judging myself for feeling that way. Just really being like, I'm suffering. Like this is hard. Like helping my kid is really hard. So you've got being present with your feelings. You've got awareness of like other parents have felt this way. I'm not the only parent who has struggled with their child. The majority of parents I've worked with, they walk around with so much shame and self-blame, because the culture is very stigmatizing to substance use problems. They feel terrible about themselves. They feel like they've caused the problem. And in fact, they are judged by other people for causing the problem. So we're a very stigmatizing culture that judges people, unfortunately, instead of having compassion for each other and being human. We all struggle. Every family struggles. And substance use problems just tend to be a particularly painful type of struggle, which is why you should be applying more compassion to it, not more judgment to it. We've collected the evidence that judgment does not work. We should just stop. We need to be creating safety for the person with the substance use problem. We need to be creating safety for their family as well, to be able to talk about their struggle, because it's hard.
Why is it so important for parents to ask themselves how they are feeling and thinking and reacting?
Well, those knowing how I'm thinking, knowing how I'm feeling, and knowing how I'm reacting, that's what you're going to bring to all those action steps, those actions that you're trying to bring into play, right? You're trying to reinforce new behaviors. You're trying to use communication skills. If you are not aware that you're talking in a tone of voice that is sharp and edgy, your communication skills aren't going to go so well, right? So you've got to be aware of, okay, I'm trying to use communication skills. I'm upset, but I've got to figure out a way to regulate my voice and like calm myself down enough so that what I'm trying to say actually comes out how I mean it, or the most effective way, instead of laced with a bunch of emotion that I'm trying to pretend like I'm not feeling in this moment, right? We really want to help you realize like, yeah, I'm having some big feelings. What do I want to do about those feelings? So when I sit down to talk to my kid, that conversation goes well. And I can actually say these communication skills, use these communication skills to say what I want and have my kid hear me, which is really what I want. I want my kid to be able to hear me.
And how important is it for parents to remember that sobriety is a learned behavior and there is a deep learning process involved?
It's one of the most important things to remember, I think. If you leave this video with no other awareness, then this is going to take a long time. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of trial and error. And we bring, and it's because it's a frightening problem, right? It's a frightening, dangerous problem. So it's understandable that we want it to happen fast. That makes perfect sense. But we just bring expectations to it that don't match up with reality. Again, going back to that idea that it takes practice and learning to learn how to not use substances, right? So I've got to learn to give something up, and I've got to learn a bunch of other stuff to replace that behavior, right? I can't just give it up. Then there's just this big empty space. I have to learn all of this new stuff, and this stuff isn't going to work right away. It's not going to feel good right away, and it may never feel like the substance does. And that's something you got to figure out how to live with. So to have compassion for that amount of learning, that's an enormous amount of learning. We've got to be able to like be patient with it and compassionate for it. And parents also, like just learning the skills in the invitation to change or any of the other approaches that you're giving them on the real program, that's going to take practice for them too. And I think really as a parent, being able to be compassionate with yourself and kind to yourself as you learn new things, it's one of the most important things.
Have you found in your decades of experience that parents don't have willingness, that it's just easier for them to shut down or withdraw or just get angry?
I don't think it's easier so much as it's just normal human reaction to pain, right? I mean, those are all understandable reactions to heartache, fear, and anger, right? So it's more about like helping them realize like that's understandable that you're feeling that way. Don't judge it. Don't beat up on yourself for feeling that way. Use that self-compassion to realize, of course you feel this way. This is a really painful thing that you're going through. How do you take care of yourself in that space, knowing that you're going through a hard time? I mean, because being able to give yourself permission to say, I'm having a hard time, is what then allows you to say, maybe I need to take care of myself in a different way. You know, people say like, just use self-care.
What does self-care even mean?
So self-care can mean a lot of things. Maybe I need to sleep better. I need to eat better. I need to exercise. I need to talk to my friends, right? Those can all be in the self-care bucket. Maybe it's a bubble bath. I mean, different things for different people, right? Self-compassion is a different element. And I think it's actually what helps people start to take better care of themselves. Because if I can't be kind to myself, if I'm not talking to myself in a kind way and giving myself a break for just being human and struggling, I'm not going to take care of myself. I'm not going to use those skills. I have to be able to say to myself, I'm having a hard time. I need to take better care of myself. I'm hurting. What can I do in response to that hurt? So it's just giving people to have like more skills on a deeper level to really tend to the heartache that comes with trying to help a child who's maybe scaring you to death.
And learning to care about yourself invites your child to do the same.
Your child's watching you all the time. So you're modeling behavior all the time to your child. And that's a lot of responsibility. And that's hard because you're human, right? And you're going to make mistakes and you're going to maybe not take care of yourself in the best way possible. But if you're constantly doing your best and you're constantly learning skills to try to keep doing your best and be effective and skillful, then awesome. Great. That's all you can ask for yourself as a human. Sends the kid the message that it's okay to work on stuff. It's okay to not be perfect at everything. It's okay to be human. Let's struggle together and figure something out together.
Wow, let's struggle together. Interesting. Yeah, because we know that when we work together on anything, we do better together than we do apart.
We struggle better together.